Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show once again. Up first, we've got some winter weather advisories out. Start up here in the north for the Arctic coast. This one here for tonight and into early tomorrow morning, starting on the central coast and then progressing eastward, and that's for another system coming across, cutting by to the north, and that should kick winds up gusts 30-40 miles an hour, and with some additional light snow that'll create lower visibilities due to the winds. Otherwise, we've got winter weather advisories out here for the northern Kuskokwim Valley, as well as the lower Yukon River Valley area on out to the Delta. That's for freezing rain. I'll get some snow, and then I'll change over to freezing rain, so you should have some light glaze going on here. But down west of Sleepmute in the Kuskokwim Valley, all the way out across the Kuskokwim Delta, winter storm warning out there. 4 to 6 inches of snow in the forecast, and then that's going to change over to freezing rain. This is out from midnight tonight until midnight tomorrow night there. And that's for snow 4 to 6 inches, and then switching over to freezing rain. Could see a fairly significant amount of glaze ice, possibly as much as a ½ inch in some areas. And for satellite imagery, you can see the moisture coming up from south to north here, riding up over the colder air. It's in place over the southwest part of the state there. And then still taking a turn to the east here with the precipitation amounts not as heavy as what we're seeing yesterday. In fact, just barely hitting the North Gulf Coast here, mostly to the south throughout the day today. Kodiak Island picked up about 1/3 of an inch of rain, and on the other side of the Aleutian Range, Igigik had 4/10 of an inch of precipitation, and Homer Seldovia about 2/10 of an inch today, and then it cuts off, nothing at Kenai, just some mid and high level clouds up here farther to the north. And that area streaming in across the Panhandle, again, quite varied rainfall amounts there, with Juneau about 4/10 of an inch, Sitka ½ an inch, and then by contrast, it's 1/100 of an inch there at Ketchikan, 2/10 of an inch at Yakutat. And then also out here over the Alaska Peninsula, some pretty gusty winds going on. Unalaska had northeast winds gusting to 36 miles an hour, and Nikolsky had northeast winds gusting to 56 miles per hour. So pretty tight gradient here ahead of this frontal boundary. It's pushing the rain up. And then the higher pressure out here ridging over the central Aleutians, with the lower pressures to the southeast, enough to really get those winds going. They're 35 to 56 miles an hour across the eastern Aleutians. Northeast flow, dry air, pulling clear skies all the way down, looks like across the Pribilofs on down toward the eastern Aleutians, or just west of the eastern Aleutians. You're in the rain area there at Unalaska. Winds gusting 40 miles an hour over the Pribilofs today. Out west, next system, and fairly tight gradient with that, pressing eastward slowly, but it's going to be blocked by this ridging. It won't make too much of an eastward progress, but there was some light rain showing up at Shimi and Attu this afternoon. Mostly clear, chilly temperatures over the interior, and a little bit of light snow, just some flurries on the western Arctic coast, and then the rain heaviest over the northern Panhandle, showers to the south. For tonight, it looks like that front will tend to sag southward, probably start drying out here over the northern Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area there as this gradient tightens with the big Arctic high in over the Yukon. Gradient start increasing, and those winds will start gusting out of the north there through the channeled areas through Skagway, and again through Lynn Canal, and even some coastal or Copper River Delta gusty north winds. Otherwise, here comes the snow, followed by the freezing rain in over the Kuskokwim Delta, southern Kuskokwim Valley. Should be mostly rain continued here for the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, periods of rain, and a little bit heavier rainfall now over the southern Panhandle. Front out to the west, edges in towards Shimi and Attu with rain and winds gusting to 50 miles an hour. But that weakens as the main low pulls back up to the northwest there. This front weakens tomorrow with a narrow band of rain and a lot lighter winds. This feature here continues to shift northward. Moisture will push northwestward and slowly northward here. Definitely getting into Prince William Sound, the rain. Best chance Whittier, less of a chance for Valdez. Cordova somewhere in between. And Yakutat, you're right on the edge once again. And the freezing rain changing over to just mixed rain and snow, changing to rain later in the afternoon tomorrow. And then this band of moisture there with another low cutting by, just barely reaching, just kind of dragging across the coast, really increasing the winds. The factor there, snowfall amounts won't be all that much, but what does fall will get blown around, reducing visibility, especially here on the eastern stretch of the coastline. Otherwise, high pressure from the Yukon in across central Alaska to the Russian Far East, pretty much holding somewhat, but giving way. As you can see, we lose the center here on Wednesday. The one in the Yukon weakens, pulls off to the east there. Still offshore flow, clear skies, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, northwest coast, western Arctic coast, and then snow trailing edge of that trough here with some snow, but a lot less wind on the eastern Arctic coast. Snow here up into the Tanana Valley, central interior, even the upper Tanana Valley, as far north as Eagle. Mixed rain and snow, change just rain along the frontal boundary here into the Prince William Sound area. Kind of wet over the southeast Bering Sea, but wind's not too much of a factor there. And then this warm front pushes a chance of rain to the southern coast of the Panhandle in the afternoon. Lows for tonight anywhere from 15 to 25, 26, 27 below over the northeast interior. Eagle down to 15 below, 7 below, both at Fairbanks and Northway, and right near zero or just above zero in the Copper River Basin. McGrath forecast low near zero. Mid to upper teens here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta to 32 at Dillingham, but then near 40 at King Salmon. Upper 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. Lower 30s for the northern southeast coast there to mid 40s down to the south. Highs for tomorrow, upper 30s Skagway and Haines, and then in the upper 40s down to the south. 50 for Kodiak, up lower 50s or 50 to 55 for the Alaska Peninsula, and upper 30s south central Alaska. Highs staying below zero over portions of the upper Yukon Valley. Lower to mid teens Tanana Valley, and milder on the Arctic coast, and pushing a shade above freezing at Macoriac. Lows the following morning, looking like this, milder. Now we're down to that 5 to 15 degree range for your overnight lows, with Northway just edging under zero. Bettles -6, lower to mid-teens eastern Beaufort Sea coast, lower 20s on the west side, and near freezing at Macoriac, near 40 for the Pribilofs. Upper 40s here for the Alaska Peninsula for your lows, and now 20s, mid-20s to upper 30s there for the southeast coast, followed by highs, upper 30s to mid-40s. And again, 50 to 55 Alaska Peninsula, 50 Kodiak. Single numbers up over the northeast part of the state, and mid-20s for the Arctic coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather for tomorrow. IFR southern southeast coast, VFR up to the north, VFR North Gulf Coast with marginal VFR southern Kenai Peninsula. Starting to creep northward here into southern Cook Inlet with IFR, Kodiak Island, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, northward, and then right into Togiak Bay and into the southwest mountains there. Good VFR over the interior. Marginal VFR just skiffing the central Arctic coast back down to Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, and then marginal VFR St. Lawrence Island to the western Aleutians. And for the afternoon, Gamble, marginal VFR, Savunga, VFR, Seward Peninsula, VFR, right in across much of the interior. A little bit of marginal VFR heads a little to the south into the north slope there, but not quite to the Brooks Range. And IFR slipping on up the eastern side of the western Alaska Range there, also up into western Prince William Sound with marginal VFR on its heels. But western Kenai Peninsula, Mananuska, most of the Sinton Valley will be VFR through tomorrow. Some IFR here over the southeast Bering, and marginal for the Aleutians. And the southeast coast, lingering marginal VFR there about Klawock to Heidelberg, otherwise VFR to the north. And then for Wednesday morning, conditions continue to deteriorate. Sea lanes visibilities start to lower here. IFR now on the south side of the central Alaska Range, and definitely on the eastern slopes of the western range there. Holding on to VFR, eastern and northeast Copper River Basin, the interior VFR, IFR showing up on the central north slope. Excuse me. IFR here from the southwest coast to the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, right on up there, Kodiak Island, in toward the Gulf. And the southeast coast here, mostly VFR, with marginal along the coast. That holds into the afternoon. Some of that tries to push inland, but not too far. But it does up in the north. Lynn Canal Glacier Bay goes marginal. IFR, western Prince William Sound. South side of the Kenai Peninsula. Upslope areas of the Alaska Range, IFR. Now marginal VFR up into the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, with even some IFR showing up there. Up close to the Yukon River, marginal VFR, southwest, IFR, Southwest Mountains. Here in the Bering Sea, Pribilof, St. Matthew Island, down to the Fox Islands, IFR, south side of the Alaska Peninsula once again, and VFR from Amchitka to Shemya. And for the passes tomorrow, Anatuvik and Anigan, both VFR. Conditions looking really good up there. Lake Clark and Merrill starting out VFR, becoming marginal during the afternoons, mainly on the eastern entrances. And rainy, same forecast, VFR becoming marginal VFR. Lowest conditions later tomorrow afternoon will be on the eastern approach, better to the west. Windy VFR the entire day. Isabel, another good VFR day coming up, and same for Mentasta. Tanita, seen an increase in the clouds, but they should stay above the marginal VFR threshold. Definitely visibilities will, and likely clouds will also. And for Portage, VFR to start, becoming IFR, so quite a deterioration in conditions going on there. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR. And for the freezing levels, still this gradient across the Panhandle, 2 to 8,000 feet there down to Queen Charlotte's, and then warmer air coming northward. And you notice the surface here along northern Bristol Bay with a warm 2 to 4,000 feet up into and across the Norton Sound area. So that's a pretty good area for some freezing rain, which supports a winter storm warning for it. And then at icing, also some areas of considerable moderate also slipping on up here into the southwest interior from Bristol Bay. Lighter stuff over toward Prince William Sound, back down to the eastern Aleutians, just east of the Pribilofs. Jet stream showing pretty wavy flow here, high amplitude flow, upper trough there at Kamchatka. Narrow ridge here right up over the west central Bering Sea. South 100 knots, northerlies 70 knots, really increase here coming down around this low. And then ridging, starting to pull eastward a little bit here. The Arctic jet also pulling off to the east. And 9,000 feet, pretty light up over the interior. Westerlies, though, 25 to as high as 35 knots, eastern Arctic coast. And not too bad, up to 45 in that next system, pushing into the far western Aleutians. 5 to 15 for the Panhandle, 3,000 feet, 5 to 10 for the southeast coast, 25 knots eastern Arctic coast, 25 to 30 coming into southwest Alaska. Turbulence, occasional moderate chop here northeast Bristol Bay. And looks like the Fox Islands, light to isolated moderate chop, northern Panhandle in the Copper River Basin.
Ahoy, Cadets, and welcome to the Okeanos Explorer. I'm Debbie, and I'm an ocean explorer. I work for NOAA, which stands for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Together with many other people, I work on this ship, and we explore the deep sea. How do we do that? Let's go find out.
Octonauts, let's do this. Yow!
The pressure in the ocean is so great, humans can't go there. So we send a special robot. Octocadets, meet Deep Discoverer, our special robot for ocean exploration. And this is Chris. He works with Deep Discoverer. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Debbie.
Can you tell us about what Deep Discoverer does?
Sure. So this is Deep Discover, and today we're going to take Deep Discover up to 4 miles down to the ocean floor so you can see what Deep Discoverer sees.
And how do we do that?
We do that by using these powerful cameras and powerful lights.
That's neat. And what is that?
And this is our manipulator arm, and we use this arm to take biological and geological samples that we store up front in these boxes, and so that we can bring them to the surface so scientists can analyze them.
Wow, isn't that cool, Octocadets? Wow! Now that we know more about the special robot that explores the seafloor, let's find out more about the ship. Octocadets, let's do this. Now let's find out what we do with D2's video. Come along. This is the control room. A lot of things about D2 happen in here. Behind me you see the pilots. They steer D2 on the seafloor. And over here we have scientists. Hi Steve and Stacy.
Hi, this is Steve and I'm Stacy and we are marine biologists.
Can you tell us about the work you do here?
We actually look at the videos collected by the robots and we try to identify organisms along with other scientists on the shore.
What are you looking at right now?
We're actually looking at a sea star.
That's so awesome, thank you. Now let's look at how we make maps of the seafloor.
Excellent, Quasi. A good map helps you to get to places you've never been.
We also have a scientist on board who makes maps of the seafloor. Hi Derek.
Hi, Debbie.
Can you tell us about your work?
Sure. My job on the ship is to make maps of the ocean floor. We do this by sending sound from the bottom of the ship. It echoes off the seafloor and comes back to the ship. And then from that, we can make maps like this. So this is what it would look like if you were able to drain the water out of the ocean and actually see what the landscape looked like down there. We use these maps to give the vehicles a place to dive, and they explore further, just like octonauts do.
Status report, Dashi.
We're right on course, Captain.
So earlier we learned that D2 picks things up from the seafloor with his manipulator arm. Let's find out what we do with those samples. This is the wet lab, and Megan spends a lot of time here. Megan, can you tell us about your work?
I am the sample data manager, so when the ROV comes up, we go out and we collect the samples from the ROV and we bring them in here. And we try to record as much information about them as possible, everything from the details about what they look like to the environment conditions where they were found. How cold was it, for example? Then we come in and we take imagery using this microscope, and we take pictures using this camera as well. And then after we get all the pictures taken and we're ready, we prepare them for shipping to other scientists and museums so more science can be done, such as the squat lobster, this cup coral as well.
And what is that?
This is a piece of coral, or several pieces of coral, that we think might actually be a new species. So we are going to send it out for a comparison to existing species to see if we discovered something new.
Wow, you have a really cool job.
Thank you.
Fascinating. I've read about this, but I've never actually seen it.
An important part of how we explore the ocean is keeping in touch with scientists and Octocadets on shore. Let's go see how we do that. Rosemary, could you tell the Octocadets a little about what that dish does?
Sure. My name is Lieutenant Rosemary Abbott. I'm the operations officer aboard the Okeanos Explorer, and that is our VSAT. It stands for Very Small Aperture Terminal, and inside that satellite dome is a very powerful dish antenna that allows us to communicate with shore and share video in real time. The technology is called telepresence.
Wow, that is so interesting. Thank you, Rosemary. Now I'm getting really hungry. Let's go to the kitchen and talk about food. This is the ship's kitchen, also known as the galley. And this is Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Debbie.
Michael is the chief steward on this ship, and he keeps 49 people fed for 3 weeks at a time. Michael, how do you do that?
With a lot of care and with the help of 3 crew members. I have myself, the chief steward, a chief cook, and a second cook. And we just do it with a lot of love and care and make sure that everybody's happy and well fed. We use up to 150 dozen eggs per trip, up to 100 gallons of milk, a lot of veggies and fruits, a lot of snacks. Everybody's very pleased with what we usually put out. We also make sure that we do it in a loving way, in a sanitary way, in a safe way that keeps everybody from getting any tummy aches.
I'm about to enter the ship's bridge. It's like the Octopod's headquarters.
Octonauts to the HQ.
Ahoy, Captain.
Ahoy, Debbie.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Octocadets, meet Eric Johnson, the commander of the ship. Eric, can you tell us about what you do up here?
Absolutely. Hello, Octocadets. My name's Eric Johnson. I'm an Corps officer, and I'm the captain of the Okeanos Explorer. Welcome to my office. This is where we drive the ship. This is where we control the operations. We run the propellers that are underneath us in the back to the wheel up here at the front, which is where we steer. It's a pretty cool job. It's very exciting, and it's pretty beautiful around here as well.
So, Octocadets, now you know a little bit about the ship and how we explore the deep sea. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I'll see you next time.
Debbie, safety first.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Growing here, as you can see, coming down closer to the coastline now. New growth also Kotzebue Sound, Norton Bay, and along the Yukon Delta, a little bit of new ice. Pretty thin though, and of course that's probably going to disappear as the next surge of warm air comes up over the next couple of days. Also seeing growth along the main ice pack up through here, as you can see, back down to Wrangell Island now. And for the coastal water forecast, south winds there along the coast of Prince of Wales Island, central and north coast, east 25, 20 knots down here to the south of 9-foot seas, 10-foot seas, small craft advisories, east winds 25 knots on the north coast. Lynn Canal winds north coming up to 30 knots, sustained, seas 6 feet, north 20 for Stevens Passage, light northwest breeze for Clarence Strait. And then for Wednesday, small craft advisories all along the coast, south coast, southeast 25 knots, east southeast 25 to 30 knots here on the north coast, seas 9 to 10 feet. Winds coming back down after that brief pickup there for Lynn Canal, 15 knots out of the north. Same thing for Stevens Passage, and southeast at 15 there for Clarence Strait. And for Prince William Sound, northeast winds 15 knots, east 25 for the North Gulf Coast, western North Gulf Coast, northeast at 30. Gale warnings out tomorrow for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay. In the case of the Barren Islands, east winds 35 knots. Over at Kamishak Bay, northeast 35. A little lighter, but still 30 knots there for Southern Cook Inlet, and small craft advisories, Northern Cook Inlet for north winds at 25 knots with 7-foot seas. That continues to Wednesday as well, and northerly winds now with 10-foot seas for Southern Cook Inlet, 30-knot winds, and gales continue for Kamishak Bay, northeast 35, east 35 for the Barren Islands, and the North Gulf Coast, pretty uniform, east 30 knots, seas 12 feet, much lighter in Prince William Sound from the northeast at 15. Kodiak Island, east side there, east winds 30 knots, all the way over to Cape Sarachev, all the way up the east side of Kodiak, east winds 30 knots, seas 11 to 14 feet. Gale warnings, Shelikof Strait, northeast 35 knots. And east winds here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula at 25, and east winds at 30 knots for Bristol Bay. And for Wednesday, southeast 25 blowing across the Alaska Peninsula, east winds a little brisker there in Bristol Bay again, east at 36-foot seas. Southeast 25 on up to Sitkinak, northeast 30, back down under gale warnings for the Shelikof Strait area, and east 20 for the east side of Kodiak Island. And out west, late tomorrow, winds coming up out of the east of 45 knots as that next front approaches, presses in. It'll stay west of Shemya, and these winds will actually be west of Kiska, Shimei and Attu, coming down to about 30 knots there west of Adak. Adak and Atka specifically northeast 25 with seas running 9 to 10 feet. And the Fox Islands looking north at 30 knots with seas 11 to 12 feet. The next day becoming a lot lighter and a little more variable, or for Unalaska Island, southwest 10 to 15 knots. On Unmak Island, northwest 15 to 20. Adak and Atka, northwest 20 to 25 knots. Westerly 25 knots there for the western Aleutians. And for the southwest coast, northeast winds 30 knots, all along the coastline, seas 8 feet, small craft advisories Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, northeast 25, northeast 30 for St. Matthew Island, north 25 for the Pribilofs. Next day, east-northeast winds 30 knots, about sums it up for all areas there, seas running 9 to 13 feet. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, west winds 25 knots, seas 6 feet, northwest 20 on the central coast, west 15 on the west side there, and east to south winds 10 to 15 knots from Wales up to Cape Beaufort. And then for Wednesday, pick it up to 25 to 30 knots out of the northeast here from Wales up to Cape Beaufort. Seas 5 to 9 feet, east 25, small craft advisories western Arctic coast, and then northeast 15 for the central and east coast. For tonight, winter storm warning out for the Kuskokwim Valley west of Sleet Mute across the Kuskokwim Delta for snow, 4 to 6 inches of snow, and then also freezing rain. Changing to freezing rain, could see possibly as much as a half inch of glaze, and then rain for Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and this band of moisture just grazing the North Gulf Coast. As high pressure begins to increase those winds late tonight over the northern Panhandle, that'll push the moisture southward. We'll see tomorrow, and the next day even drier.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.